What's up, guys? I'm just here at the ocean trying to see if I can find some fish, but I don't see any. So I think I'm gonna try to look over there, see if the fish are biting. Let you know how things goes. Once again, I'm playing 2-3 and buying for 300 bucks. Very first hand I'm dealt, I look down at pocket 8s. I'm first to act, so I open to 15. I haven't even had a chance to get set up or look around the table yet, so I failed to notice that the player to my right was under the gun and had straddled a 6. Oops. The player to my left calls, and somehow everyone else folds, including the straddle. Flop comes King 7-7 with 2 spades. I think c-betting this board 100% of the time for a small size is fine, so I bet 15. Low jack calls. Turn is the deuce of spades, bringing in the flush. Now a check seems like the best option. I do have the 8 of spades, so perhaps I can check call depending on the size of the bet, or sometimes it will check down to the river and I'll win unimproved. Either way, the only move here is to check. So I bet $40, and the low jack thinks for a bit and then jams all in for $175. I fold and quickly table change to avoid embarrassing myself any further here. Next hand of note, I get dealt 8-6 of diamonds in the big blind. The straddle is on and action folds around to the small blind, an older guy with around 500 in his stack. He asks if we want to chop.
Chop? This can't chop
Okay, make it 22.
Now I'm kind of stuck here in the middle between the small blind and the straddle, and I kind of hate all of my options. Folding is probably fine, but that's boring. Calling and going to the flop 3 ways with a gap-suited connector seems terrible. So I elect the exciting option and 3-bet to 65. Comment below how you would play a 6-suited or a similar hand in this spot. The straddle now goes into the tank, which is pretty scary. But eventually he folds, and the small blind follows suit after a few seconds, showing an ace and saying if he was suited he would have called. So I take this one down without any resistance. Next, we pick up Queen 10 of clubs in early position and open to $15. The low jack and big blind call and we head to a flop. Queen A5, all hearts. The big blind checks, and I decide to check here with my medium strength hand. The low jack now bets $30. Big blind folds, and already I don't love my spot, but with top pair, folding here seems criminal, so I call. The turn comes the 8 of diamonds, which I don't mind seeing at all. I check, and the low jack continues, but for a pretty small size, 40 bucks into 100. This throws me off a bit, as I don't think villain has a flush very often with this line. Even the nut flush is probably betting bigger, considering the board is now paired, and villain might be scared of me sucking out on the river. I briefly consider turning my top pair into a bluff, but I'm not very deep, so that seems even worse than calling. In the end, I decide I can wait for a better spot to punt off all my chips, and fold. Immediately, I get shown the good news. Low jack has pocket 8s for turn quads. How come I couldn't do that when I had 8-8? In this one, I pick up pocket 6s in the big blind. The straddle is once again on to 6, and this time we get 3 field callers before action gets back to me. I elect to squeeze to $40 and only the straddle calls. The dealer puts out Ace-King 10. In theory, a pretty great flop for my range, but in actuality, a terrible flop for my hand. I check, which to be fair I might also be doing with the nuts, and villain checks back. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, which doesn't really change anything. I have one of the worst hands I'll ever have in this spot, so I figure a small bluff can't be too bad. I bet 35 bucks, and the straddle folds almost immediately. A few minutes later, I get dealt pocket 10 in the low jack. I open to $15, and the hijack and big blind call. Alright guys, on the count of 3, I need you to smash that like button. Ready? 3, 2... Just kidding, what kind of nerd begs for likes? Anyway, we smashed the flop harder than... Never mind. Big blind checks, and there should be a lot of hands that can call a bet here, so I bet a little more than half pot, 25 bucks. The hijack apparently hates money more than my wife on a fancy date, because he quickly raises the $65. The big blind gets out of the way, and I call. The turn is a beautiful black 3. I check. The hijack is still feeling generous. as he slides $125 into the pot. I do some quick math, calculate the pot odds, my equity versus my opponent's equity, stack to pot ratio, and some other advanced algebraic equations before eventually announcing all in for $225.
All in. What's a call?
Then he lowered. Goes by Danny.
Kings and tens and a set of tens.
Fucking times, I don't fucking understand that. It's literally 4 times.
I'm feeling pretty good as I look down at pocket 8 in early position. What could possibly go wrong this time? I raised to $10. It folds to the cutoff, who is a good young player. He 3-bets to $35. According to GTO Wizard, this is what his 3-bet range should look like. Versus this range, the standard play with pocket 8s is apparently to call about 40% of the time and fold the rest. However, this is all thrown off when the big blind cold calls for no reason. Now I think I have a pretty clear call given my direct pot odds and implied odds if I hit a set. I called the 35 and we head to a flop. Queen 5-6, 2 clubs. It checks to the cutoff and he continues to the same size bet, $35. The big blind calls and I'm on the fence here with my middling pocket pair. Heads up, I would definitely call 1 street at least, but 3 ways I think the cutoff is bluffing a lot less with his ace-king, ace-jack type of hands, and I think he's definitely checking back 10s and jacks. Given that his range should be tighter and the big blind has a lot of queen X when he calls here, I make what is for me a disciplined fold, but in reality is probably a no-brainer. Naturally, after making a good fold, the turn crushes my soul as it comes the 8 of hearts. The cutoff bets 75 and the big blind calls. The river brings in the flush, but it would have given me a boat, of course, the 6 of hearts. The cutoff goes all in for his remaining 130. The big blind ends up tank folding. I asked the cutoff after the hand if he could beat pocket 8s. Surprisingly, he said he could not. So we miss out on a big pot here, all because we made a good fold. Sometimes poker just isn't fair. It's about an hour later and our stack has dwindled down to $500. I look down at 7-6 suited in the big blind. Under the gun, a young pro from Vegas raises to 10. Hijack and cutoff call, and I call. The flop looks pretty favorable, 2-6-5. I have top pair and backdoor straight and flush draws. Action checks to the cutoff who bets 20. Under the gun calls out of turn before I can act. This should probably be a bit concerning, and there's a case that I can fold now, given his tight pre-flop range from under the gun and the fact that he's calling the flop. But I call the 20 anyway. Turn seems pretty irrelevant as it comes to queen of spades. It checks to the cutoff, and this time he checks it back. The river is the deuce of hearts, pairing the board. I am now chopping with any other 6x, but my hand is definitely too weak to go for any kind of thin value. I check, and the pro bets 55. Cutoff folds, and now I go into the tank. I think under the gun is definitely capable of bluffing here, but the problem is, what logical bluffs does he have that would check call the flop? Even 7-8 suited might just fold first to act pre-flop. In game, I thought he could bet here with a 6, which might be true, but how many 6x does he have? Ace-6 suited is probably the only one, and that's just 4 combos. Villain can also probably have medium pocket pairs, or even kings through aces sometimes, that check the flop and go for value on this river. I'm getting about 3-1 on a call, so I need to win 25% of the time. Even if I give Villain a few combos of 7-8 suited and 9-8 suited, he still has many more combos of medium to high pocket pairs. Comment below what you think I should do here versus pro. In the end, I decide folding is boring and flicking a call. Villain owns my soul with pocket 9. I guess that's why he's the pro and I'm the fish. Let's send it out to me in the outro and see how I'm feeling after this session. Alright, just finished the session. Played for 2 hours. It's in for 360 and cashed out for 420 exactly. So that was nice. I definitely gave some away near the end of the session. I made that bad call with bluff catcher versus pocket 9s, and then there was one other hand where I had pocket 8s. I folded the flop, I think correctly, but Then of course the turn was an 8. River would have given me a boat and I would have won a $500 or $600 pot. So I should have just learned my lesson from last session and made another bad call there, because bad calls get rewarded, as I found out. So definitely have a few regrets from this one, but still end up booking a win. So I guess I can't really complain, and I'll see you guys next vlog.